The sweep is complete. Your Washington Nationals just got swept by the Tampa Bay Rays, but just because we got swept doesn't mean there's a little bit of good to take away from this, but there is also some bad things. We'll talk about both on Locked On Nationals right after this.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Ryan Clary, and I have taken my passion for baseball into podcast form here with the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day. And before we get into it, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Guys, FanDuel is the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And as I said, the Nationals did just get swept by the Tampa Bay Rays. In this first segment, we're going to get into what was good, what was bad, because there was a lot of bad from this series. A lot of people are talking about, why didn't Davey Martinez pull Kyle Finnegan in that ninth inning, as he could have seen from a mile away he was in trouble? We're going to talk about that. Today, we finally got our first stolen base. Everyone else in the major league seemed to have figured this out. Why haven't the Nationals done that just yet? We're going to talk about that. Also, some good things from this. Individual performances, Victor Robles, all of that. We're going to get into that this segment. Next segment, I do want to get into the bullpen and how we should be managing this, because I think that is the biggest storyline from this series. And then lastly, we're going to review, let our steam out, and move forward to the Colorado Rockies, as the Nationals have a 4-game set coming up starting tomorrow. But guys, we're going to start with the good and the bad. We're going to start off on the bad first. We're going to end on the good stuff. So, first of the bad stuff for me was the base running. I kind of hinted at this. Everyone except the Nationals to this point have figured out that with these new rules, it allows you to run freely. Through 2 series so far, the Nationals got their first stolen base of the year, and it was a review play, a bang-bang play with Lane Thomas snagging second base, and that is a part that is so stressful to think about with this Nationals team. You can't allow that to happen at this point. When you have guys who can steal bags, Victor Robles, C.J. Abrams, Lane Thomas, Alex Cald, these are the guys who should be producing on the base path, especially with these new rules. And that is something that, with all the new rules, it allows base runners to run way more freely. You can't just throw over to Victor Robles every other pitch. It doesn't work like that. You have 2 throwbacks per at-bat. So with that, yes, you do need to have base runners on base to be able to steal a bag. And the Nationals haven't really been able to produce too much of that. But then again, when they get guys on bases, they're going to have to be more aggressive. And when they be more aggressive, don't just steal a base to steal a base. Go when you have to go. Take the opportunity and run with it. I've seen a lot of guys, and this isn't just me sitting back here and talking, just with talking with other guys who are watching baseball and gals, all these different people who are saying, how can't we figure this out yet? It's been 6 games and the Nationals have only had 1 stolen base, and that was today for Lane Thomas. That is something we have to figure out moving forward. Second of the bad is the defense so far. Today for the Nationals, Victor Robles dropped that ball out in the sun. I don't really blame him on that. I don't blame anyone on that. The sun is bad. We understand that. It happens. And also, I tweeted this out at Ryan Clary 11. You can check that out. Has the sun gotten worse at Nationals Park or something? a lot of people are talking about the Sun this year. I feel like it hasn't really been talked about in years past. I've always known the Sun is not in a great position over at Nationals Park. There's a lot of different shadows appearing on the field at different times of the day, and also the way that it kind of hinders over the third baseline and that right field sun that Jason Worth used to talk about for years and years. That's a tough spot to play in. But at the end of the day, these are professionals that will have to make these adjustments. One or the two plays that I really got kind of disgusted with today was Alex Call and Victor Robles running into each other in the outfield. It's going to happen in Major League Baseball. It's going to happen at any level of baseball. But here's the thing. When you have a team that needs to be better defensively, the simple things have to click. Communicating in the outfield, while it seems so little, if Alex Call and Victor Robles were running full speed at each other, who knows what would have happened? Injuries, we know that. That is something that this team cannot afford to do. And they are better than that. And that is a frustrating aspect of a rebuilding team, but also it is stuff that has to be done. And you have to communicate when you are out there on all facets of the game. It's just simple to me with that. Communicate. Say, I have the ball. I know some people may think, do they really do that in the bigs? Yes, they do. If you were in the game, you could hear the Rays players yelling it out of anywhere. And really, the Nationals do it as well. But in that situation, with a struggling pitcher on the mound with Patrick Corbin, you can't afford to have an extra base runner because of the lack of communication. I'm sure Davey Martinez has said something to them about that. That can't happen. Another part of the defense is the errant throws. We saw a runner advance over to third today from someone who just wasn't even covering third base. We had no one covering third base in a major league game for a bad team. It makes my skin crawl of how angry I was at that. Because again, it's the simple things that this team has to do to improve. And honestly, this defense this year has been light years better than it was to start just last year. But also the expectations are higher. Today, we didn't have Dominic Smith over at first base. You have Joey Meneses. Not the same defensive player. We understand that. But again, Abrams, Candelario, you have to be covering third base. Patrick Corbin, Keibert Ruiz, any of those guys cannot allow a base runner to move over, especially when no one's covering that bag. This is little league stuff. And that is the frustrating part of this rebuilding team, to where how can we actually get into this fluke of a situation to where we are allowing the simple things to get by this team? I don't know who is to blame for it. Is there even anyone to blame for it? Or is it just sloppy baseball to start off the year? It could be the latter, honestly. But for a team that's not that good, especially on the defensive side of things, you can't afford that to happen for this team, especially for a lackluster pitching staff that's not really going to be carrying this roster anywhere. You just have to make the easy given plays to you at all times if you want to give yourself any chance to win. Because that's the part that is the most frustrating to me, is with the defense. While individual performances have been very good, that I will be highlighting a little bit later, you do also have to talk about the bad with that. Another part of the bad was the ability to drive in runs for this Nationals team. And that comes back to what we have been talking about with the struggles every single day with this team, and that is the power. The power has gone missing. Well, let me say this actually. Has it gone missing if it just doesn't really exist? I didn't expect this Nationals team to have a 450 slug. I get it. I understand that part of it. But only 2 home runs in 6 games for a team that needs run production, for a team that today on the base path was really bad. For example, Lane Thomas had 6 runners left on base. C.J. Abrams had 7 runners left on base. Alex Cole and Victor Robles both had 3 runners left on base. We're not driving in runs, especially when you have those guys back to back to back to back. 4 guys in a row. That is a tough scene to watch between those two. Because 19 runners left on base for batters who are back to back to back to back is not good enough. Especially when you have guys at the top of the order and with Robles and Abrams at the bottom of the order. We need those guys to get on base so you can have Candelario, Meneses, and Ruiz hit them home successfully. That is how this team will be producing their runs. And those guys have to get on base. And when they are on base, they're going to have to be smart and selectively choose when to steal and when not to steal. I'm going to talk to you guys about the good from this Rays series because there seriously was some good moments, and I will highlight those. Before we highlight those, though, I have to tell you guys about my friends over on FanDuel. And guys, the NBA playoffs are almost here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. We've seen Corey Kispert of the Wizards just knock down 3 after 3. So tonight we're taking the over in threes for Corey Kispert. He's been on a roll. Let's stick with the young kid here in Washington, D.C. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And now we get back into it as we discuss the bad. Now it's time to get in the good of this series. And a lot of people may be frustrated with the Nationals falling to 1-5 today. But again, guys, this is a rebuilding team. We don't really know what to expect as far as a win total goes. I do believe we'll be over that 58.5 game threshold. That's a conversation for another day, another time. The Nationals played the Braves first 3 games, and then they played the Rays. The Rays seem to be pretty damn good once again, along with the Rays. So let's take it a step back. The Nationals are not a good foundational team right now. Those 2 teams are. Let's take a break, take a step back. Now it's time to talk about the good from this series. And I think an individual performance like Victor Robles on the defensive side of things, making another web gem today in center field, that is the Victor Robles that we want to see. And also, let's talk about it. Multiple SportsCenter top 10 plays, because that play that he had today will be on the SportsCenter top 10 tonight. If you're watching right now, let me know if it is, because I'm recording this a little bit earlier, right after the game. I know it's going to be on that top 10 list tonight. Not even to mention his defensive side of things that have been good. Let's highlight the offensive performance that Victor Robles has had over the last few days. Again, today, he added 2 more hits. He added an RBI. And again, guys, he added another base on balls. This is a new Victor Robles. What would it mean if Victor Robles can pan out to what we expected him to be back in 2019, 2020, and all those years that he didn't really show up the way that we wanted him to? That's another conversation for another day, but you start to see what everyone wants to see from Victor Robles and what everyone expected to see from Victor Robles. Because back when he was in the minor leagues, this was someone they were talking about who could be a 2020 guy, stealing bases, has power, plays a solid center field. We just haven't been able to put it all together for Victor Robles at this point. But man, he's off to a hot start. I'm not going to be buying too much into it. I got to see a little bit more before I can buy in. But I call balls and strikes here. And he's been damn good at the offensive side of things as well on the defensive side of things, which is no surprise to anyone. Another good from this week, I think bullpen arms, Hobie Harris and Mason Thompson. Listen, I get it. I talked about this bullpen and how it could be the difference maker, which I still believe in, by the way. I think this bullpen, when you're talking about the collective group of guys within the outfield, the infield, the hitters, the pitching, the starting pitching, and the bullpen is the strong point of this team. It's not some ringing endorsement. I understand that. But if you were to ask me that question, I'm saying the bullpen, and I'm sticking with that. I think Hobie Harris has come out of nowhere, pitched 1 2/3 so far, a couple of strikeouts. That's what we wanted to see from him. And honestly, after a strong spring training, I wasn't really expecting too much in the regular season. But again, being that fireman for Kyle Finnegan yesterday was a big deal. We needed someone to come in, revive this team after that blown 9th inning that we're going to be getting into a little bit later. But that is the kind of decision-making that we do want to see from these guys, especially from Davey Martinez as he gains more trust with guys like Hobie Harris and Mason Thompson. Mason Thompson has been someone who I think at this deadline could probably be the Nationals closer by August and maybe even sooner. But there's also guys like Hunter Harvey who have been good. He's had some rough moments here in the early portion of the season, but I still believe in his stuff. If you look at Baseball Savant and you look at the top velocities and Hunter Harvey pitches in that game, he's going to be up there 99% of the time. He is a 100-mile-per-hour flamethrower with a nice changeup to go with it every now and then, and that is what we want to see from these bullpen pieces down the road. Good. Dominic Smith in the field and as well as at the plate. Dominic Smith is someone who we know is a stout defensive guy. But the surprising part of this season, as he did not play today, but yesterday, for example, Dominic Smith was someone who has been pretty solid. Yes, he did go 0 for yesterday, but again, this is someone who hasn't really been a consistent player in the lineup with the New York Mets the past few years. But again, guys, this is someone who we can build off of and can trade at the deadline. As we have talked about with these veteran pieces, what can you do with them? Is it too much to have all these different vets in the roster? Well, you have guys like a Dominic Smith who you can flip at the deadline, and that is a value to this team. And if he continues to produce the way that he has been so far, then this Nationals team will actually be in a win-win situation when it comes to either trading him or just staying put and keeping him. I would trade him at this point, but again, there's a lot of baseball to be played over the next few months. He's got a lot of time to either struggle or thrive. We'll just see what he has to do moving forward. But again, last part of the good is Keibert Ruiz. We've talked about that Keibert Ruiz is as important to this team as anyone else on this roster. Throwing Mackenzie Gore, Josiah Gray, CJ Abrams, whoever, Keibert Ruiz is in that conversation to be kind of the captain of this team in my mind. I look at Keibert Ruiz. I love what he can do on the defensive side of things. We've seen it time and time again over the years. Last year being a couple picks off from not stealing bases, but throwing runners out. That is kind of what we want to see from Keibert. But this is the part we haven't seen over the years, is the offensive production that he has put up so far with this Nationals team. Like again today, adding another hit, improving his season batting average to 294, and again, getting some power in their order, a 929 OPS, getting on base at a 40% clip. That is what is integral to this Nationals team in any game, any situation, day or night. This is what the Nationals need from Keibert Ruiz. And honestly, it's the expectation for him going forward with this Nats lineup. Now, we're going to take a look at this Rockies series. As the Nationals have 4 games, you're going to see Mackenzie Gore, you're going to see Josiah Gray, And you're going to see Josiah Gray tomorrow at Coors Field. Yikes. We're going to talk about that. We're going to preview it. But before we do that, I have to tell you guys about my friends over from Ultimate Baseball GM. And guys, Pro Baseball GM is the coolest game I played in a long time. I've always thought I could be a great GM. As it turns out, it's not as easy as you'd think. Shocker. If you've had the same thought as I've had fantasizing about managing a team or being Mike Rizzo for the Washington Nationals, this is the game for you. I can promise you that. The game allows you to manage everything from hiring bench coaches, pitching coaches, hiring anything and anyone that you want, spending, setting a lineup, whatever it may be. This is the game for you. I can tell you that. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Baseball GM is completely free, playable offline, play on the go as you want and when you have to. It doesn't matter. Locked On Nationals listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up in the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com, Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. And now we get back into this Washington Nationals series as we are getting ready. We're going to flip the page and we get to face a much worse team with the Colorado Rockies. And Thursday, April 6th, who will be on the mound for your Washington Nationals? It will be Josiah Gray going up against the Colorado Rockies ace, Kyle Freeland. This is a game to where a lot of people look at the schedule and you're like, I really don't want to see Josiah Gray pitch tomorrow out at Coors Field after yielding a couple home runs in his Nationals debut for 2023. Do we really want to see this? I think this is going to be an opportunity for Josiah Gray to really prove that I have turned the corner of giving up these home runs. But here's the key. Run support will be a factor for the Nationals, especially going against another left-handed hitter. And again, the Nationals face Shane McClanahan today, in fact, for the Nats just today. Good Lord, I suck. McClanahan today. Now you go against Freeland tomorrow, another left-handed pitcher who had a pretty solid year for the Rockies just last year. But again, it's going to come down to jumping on these guys early, getting them a little uncomfortable, especially for a home opener for the Colorado Rockies. Get them out of their environment a little. It's going to be cold. The ball won't be flying as it usually does at Coors Field. So let's get some runs on the board. Let's make some noise, steal some bags, and make the easy plays. This is what the Nationals team has not done so far in 2023. They're making it look way more difficult than it has to be. Not getting guys on the board, leaving runners on the base. This is the simple stuff that the Nats need to work on, and they will continue to do that throughout this season. It just needs to come into fruition at some point. So can it be Coors Field? Will this be the time that the Nationals get hot, start hitting home runs, and you start to see some power from Lane Thomas, Keibert Ruiz, which we have seen, Victor Robles even, CJ Abrams? These are guys that we will want to see put up some numbers, especially from the power side, because that is kind of the part to where the Nationals haven't really done well whatsoever. At all, in fact. But then looking at it, maybe even a guy like Stone Garrett, who had a hit today and 2 walks, gets an opportunity tomorrow at Coors Field. See what he can do, because that guy has some serious power, especially at Coors. I would love to see him put one up in the Rockies. That would be amazing. But again, drive in runs, get on these guys early, and don't let the starting pitching just leak into the later innings. And that is where this Nationals team has gotten into trouble so often through this 2023 season. Got a lot off my chest there. So thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your pods and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network where you get your team every single day. And guys, again, thank you for tuning in today. I will have more covered for you as we get ready for this Colorado Rockies series, a 4-game set in Denver, Colorado. If you're going to the series, let me know. That'll be really cool. Bundle up. It's going to be freezing cold up in Denver, Colorado. But again, the Nationals did get swept by the Tampa Bay Rays in 3 games in gutting fashion. It was not pretty baseball being played. But guys, it's a rebuilding team. This stuff is going to happen, and it will continue to happen, and it's going to continue to frustrate myself and you. We'll just keep it down. We will keep it down for now until we have to scream and shout and let it all out. God, I hate myself for saying that. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Go Nats.